Welcome to Webinar 3, Top Tips for Managing and Expanding Address Book. As with any professional service organisation, contacts and the relationships with those contacts are the key to generating new business. The main issues with managing those contacts and relationships are usually around centralising and sharing, keeping the information up to date, minimising duplicate data, and then making the most out of the captured information. So here we have a typical contact management data flow, starting with creating or acquiring new contact information. So this is stored with further details such as telephone number, email, company address, and this can cover things like clients, potential clients, project team or suppliers. So this information then provides the central store where further details then attach to those contacts and then are used for various parts of the business. So starting with business development, the information that's been stored already can then be used to help segment certain potential clients that a business wants to target. So you may do this by sector or some other information. Campaigns can be generated, for example, for Christmas card lists or your new brochure that's been sent out. And then further details can be stored as part of those campaigns. So maybe email conversations that have been had or just general conversations or tasks can be associated to those contacts. So once we move on to the potential project or the confirmed project stage, that information can be sucked in and used for project team and for client details. And then the final step is really the experience of working with these individuals can be fed back in again, back into the central store. And this whole collection of information can then be used to sort of help build as much knowledge about your client base and your potential clients, which can then be fed back into business development and the whole cycle started again. Now again, this is obviously for an ideal situation or ideal picture, and most companies don't quite achieve this for various reasons, which we'll look at now. So what are some of the common issues? So if a central system exists at all, then that centralized information contains inaccurate and duplicate data. So although there may be a centralized system, the data's got left and is out of date, and there may be, with multiple individuals adding this information, a lot of duplicate data there. Departments and staff use their own solutions for storing contact details. So if the central system has started to fail, you may find individuals or departments start to use their own systems, whether this be Outlook or more comprehensive solutions such as Sage Act or something like that. Systems and devices can't integrate or access the information. So you may find that people's phones don't talk with their Outlook information or vice versa, or you may find a central system doesn't talk with Outlook or a central system doesn't talk with their phones. So again, this can then start to lead to a failing of the data. And then the final one is minimal information is entered and details that are entered are not then utilized or analyzed. So basic information is entered, which may not be that useful, but then any other further information that is used or entered is then not fully used or utilized. So if you're looking for a particular solution, the things that you should sort of look at and are key really are being able to centralize that information and do it successfully. Offer easy access via all common devices, so things like phones, Outlook should be able to read information from your contact database. Something that can help you minimize duplicate data, again, will ensure people then start to build faith in the system. Enable automated or easy update. So again, keeping that information up to date is essential. And whether this can be done automated by things that are maybe send out an automatic email to individuals whereby they can fill in their or update their telephone and address details, which will then update your centralized system, or just make it very easy to update. Offer flexible searching so that you can analyze and make sure you can get the information out of the system that you want to get out for doing your campaigns or sending out new brochures or Christmas card lists or any other those sort of business functions. Provide tools to analyze and extract the information. And then finally, allow primary, secondary and tertiary data to be stored. And what I mean by this is we've categorized three types of information. So primary is things like name, company, telephone number, email. So sort of the basics of any contact database. Secondary is information required for business development. So notes, maybe source sector, the campaign groups, or some method for segmenting that data, so things like sector. And then the third thing, or the tertiary items, are projects worked on with and experience. So being able to use that information, linking them to projects, so you then have a project list for each of your consultants that you work with, or the clients, and then maybe any experience that you've had with working with those individuals can then be stored as well. Okay, so now we're going to have an actual look at a contact management solution, and we're going to use Rapport 3 for the example. So we're now in Rapport 3 and we're at the home page. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on the Contacts tab, which will take me through to the Contacts module. Now we happen to come across the first contact that I last searched on. So this in this case is John Silcock. So this is a typical amount of information on this contact database. So we've got things about the individual, some telephone details, email, position within the organisation, and then company details. So the name of the company, the group, address, website, and then business type. And on the right hand side here we then have related items. This is where we were looking at sort of the tertiary data items. So we've got things like the projects that we've worked with this individual, other members of the staff, of our staff, that also know this individual, any other contacts that work for Silcock, Dawson and Partners, and then any other companies that belong to the group Silcock, Dawson and Partners, and all these are hyperlinks. So if I select, for example, Nick Ford, that will take me through to Nick Ford's record and give me his details. If I want to look at one of the other branches within the Silcock, Dawson group, clicking that will then take me through to their London office. And if I want to go back to their Princess Risborough office, selecting will then take me back again. So these are just some of the sort of basic information that's stored along with this third sort of level tertiary information that's being linked from other parts of the system. Okay, so another area we touched on was duplicate contact information. Now there's a number of ways that this can be looked at or reviewed or prevented. And the first way is using the sort of reporting method, whereby you can have a look at data that's already gone into the system. So we've got an example report here which will enable you to see any contact information that's regarded as duplicate. So I'm running a report called Duplicate Contact Check. So what this has done is used a similar sounding first name and surname. So for example, here we've got Alan with a double L, one with a single L, Murray, Alan Murray Associates. They're both active. So you can see they've obviously just been put in incorrectly. And if you move or look down the list, you can see we've got a number of contacts here that have gone in incorrectly, either as a duplicate or just a spelling mistake. So what you can do is try and build in tools to prevent duplicate information going in. To give you an example of that, if we're about to create a new contact, we can use something like this here. So it's a wizard for creating a new contact. So rather than as a normal database, you just directly add in information straight to the field and then click save. This will try and guide you through the process of avoiding duplicates. So the first question it asks is, what's the company's name? So if I was to type in here Silcock for Silcock Dawson, this will then search the database and find any company that already has Silcock Dawson in the title. So it's not going to stop me from creating new Silcock Dawson. I have the option down here, but it at least will highlight to me we already have 4 companies in the database that start with Silcock. So if I look down the list and find, oh, actually it is one of these, I can select the company and then click next. So we've skipped step 2, which is create the company name. We're straight on to creating a contact. So again, the same process applies. So we have mandatory fields here, the fields that are in grey. So if I start to add in the contact details, so John Silcock, as soon as I move off the surname, it will search the database of contacts this time and say, okay, there's already a contact in the database called John Silcock. So again, I have the same choices again. I can either select and say, okay, that is John Silcock, there is a duplicate, and it will take me through to that record and I can then have a look and make any changes. Or if it really is another John Silcock, I can then create that from scratch. So the real idea or real purpose is to try and prevent duplicate information in the first place. Okay, so another area we touched on was being able to filter and search the information you've got stored. And in this example here, we've got over 11,000 contacts in our contact database. So if I want to be able to filter this information down to then be able to send a campaign out or do an invitation, I want to be able to use some kind of mechanism for doing that. So if I select on any one of these labels here, so for example business type, this will open up the filtering page where I can then specify what it is I want to then filter against. So because I clicked on the business type drop down, I can then choose that from the area here. So I'm now going to choose engineers from the list and click search. So this has brought back now 1,606 contacts that match our criteria. If I then want to further drill down, I could choose something like town. And then type in, and again click search. So we're now looking for engineers with the town equal to London. So this has now come back to 381 records. So you can see we've brought the database down from 11,000 to 1,600 to now 381 records. And we can continue to add filters within here until we get to the information we're interested in. So if I was to now select the first one in the list, we're now looking at our 381 records. And if I want a quick data dump of this information, if I click on the power search icon where we set up our original filter and then click the export to Excel button, this will automatically dump that data into Excel, which can then be reused and imported into any campaign or something like a MailChimp, which can then be used to run an email campaign. Okay, so that's a basic sort of introduction to Rapport 3 contact management. And that concludes today's webinar. Thank you. And if I want a quick data dump of this information, if I click on the power search icon where we set up our original filter and then click the export to Excel button, this will automatically dump that data into Excel, which can then be reused and imported into any campaign or something like a MailChimp, which can then be used to run an email campaign. Okay, so that's a basic sort of introduction to Rapport 3 contact management. And that concludes today's webinar. Thank you.